up, Invariants? It's me, MT, and Victor Timely is Noodles. Wait, welcome back to the Heavy Spoiler Show, by the way. It's great to have you, but Victor Timely is Noodles. What the hell just happened at the end of Loki episode 4? And what could possibly come next after we just witnessed what looks like the end of the entire MCU multiverse as we've known it? Well, I believe that there are actually hints from past Marvel projects that could actually explain what's going on here, with a little help from Norse mythology and creatively applied science. So, let us dive into this big banger of a cliffhanger together, my nerd babies. Now, the sheer hype that I experienced at the end of Loki episode 4 was astronomically high because I strongly believe that what we just witnessed was the next MCU Big Bang, also known as the initial singularity. If that second term sounds familiar to some of you, it might be because you're a big old science nerd, or you heard Peter Parker say it that one time in Spider-Man Far From Home when being amazed upon learning that the multiverse exists.
You're saying there's a multiverse? Because I thought that was just theoretical. I mean, that completely changes how we understand the initial singularity. We're talking about an eternal inflation system.
Now, for the sake of breaking this down in as easy to understand terms as possible, you guys ever watch the Young Sheldon prequels? You know, the Big Bang Theory. If you have, then you're probably familiar with how the theme song starts with, "Our whole universe was in a hot, dense state. Then over 14 million years ago, expansion started. Wait!" That, in a nutshell, is what the initial singularity is in science. The period of time right before the Big Bang when all the energy and matter that would ever exist in the universe was crunched down into an extremely tiny and impossibly hot, dense state. Right before that tiny singularity explodes, creating the universe that we know of today. That is pretty much what I believe we all just witnessed at the end of Loki episode 4. The exact causation of the next MCU Big Bang. Like, that is what the rainbow infinity energies of the sacred timeline have always been in the MCU. The root rainbow energies that the Infinity Stones were born from, just refined and woven into fine threads by the time loom of the TVA.
Big Bang sends 6 elemental crystals hurtling across the virgin universe. These Infinity Stones each control an essential aspect of existence.
Marvel actually foreshadows this happening at the start of the Loki Season 1 finale, when we see the energies of an entire universe get jammed together in a singular hot, dense ball of light, before exploding outwards again and creating a completely new universe, and then revealing that this newly created universe all existed within this black hole on the left of the frame here. That phenomenon that happens before we zoom into this black hole on the right is a representation of the cosmological theory of the Big Bounce. The Big Bounce theory is essentially a theory that proposes that the universe is in a constant cycle of destruction and rebirth. And at the end of our universe's life, all the energy and matter that ever existed will be crunched together into a super tiny, hot, dense space within the center of a black hole. An event fittingly called the Big Crunch, because it's just a big crunch of all of that energy, which is then of course followed by a new Big Bang. This theorized endless cycle of Big Bangs and Big Crunches is called the Big Bounce. And we literally saw that happen in that black hole on the left before we zoom into the black hole on the right, which shows us all the energy that makes up the MCU cosmos being woven into thin pieces of energy spaghetti to orbit around the Citadel at the end of time. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 1 actually includes a prophecy on the walls of the temple room on Morag that essentially tells us the story of the initial singularity and the cycle of the Big Bounce. Specifically, how the combination of a high concentration of 6 energies has triggered an endless cycle of Big Bangs and Big Crunches for countless eons. If you guys want a really great breakdown of this ancient prophecy that also breaks down the science of all the Infinity Stone energies, check out this super eye-opening video on the Marvel trigger theory that you can find right here. However, since that video is several years old now, I very much consider that a first draft of a theory that has evolved drastically since then. So some of the things that I do bring up in that video aren't 100% accurate, due to me having learned a lot more about MCU multiverse science since then. However, despite this video is still a super solid primer that will get you to see how Marvel Studios has meticulously crafted their whole entire cinematic universe with science. I mean, since the MCU started with a science man, Kevin Feige made sure to continue that science theme throughout the entire universe. But I also highly suggest you guys check out my Loki episode 1 video on heavy spoilers explaining how the TVA and the Citadel at the end of time are located inside of a black hole, because I'm essentially just expanding on that idea here in this video. And if you do, you might also begin to see just how He Who Remains has been preventing the MCU's natural cycle of death and rebirth by preventing the rainbow energies of everything that has ever lived from branching out and exploding by creating the TVA and making his workers prune the timeline for eons. With this perfect control over the TVA and his mastery over gravitational science, He Who Remains was holding off the natural chaos of a new Big Bang beginning for everyone by shaping reality according to his own will. That is the prize of the true winner of the multiversal time war, a seat at the center of the MCU's black hole to manage the flow of infinity's rainbow energies that make up the flow of time and all of existence. These rainbow energies are literally the core of the MCU. However, when He Who Remains got tired of managing all that energy all the time, he decided to let Loki and Sylvie decide whether or not the next Big Bang should happen, with Loki being on the side of the TVA's unnatural order and Sylvie choosing the side of natural energetic chaos, a decision that has now led to the aggregation and amplification of all of that energy inside of the MCU's black hole. Doctor Strange and America Chavez actually get a brief look at all of the timelines wildly branching from outside of the MCU multiverse's black hole in Multiverse of Madness, specifically right after they fly past the faces of the living tribunals. They didn't know it at the time, but they were staring right at the black hole holding Sylvie's chaotically branching sacred timeline right before America and Strange jump into that timeline to start crashing through realities. Like, if you're looking for an in-depth video as to how America Chavez's journey through the multiverse works with her powers in the context of this Loki black hole, check this video out that I did a while back on another channel here. But speaking of trippy Doctor Strange journeys, let's talk about the one that the Ancient One sent Doctor Strange on in Doctor Strange 1, because that is the first time that I believe we've seen the initial singularity in the MCU. If you've seen this theory video that I made in the past, breaking down Doctor Strange's multiverse spell from Spider-Man No Way Home, then you'll know that I believe that the Ancient One sent Doctor Strange on a trippy journey back in time to the Big Bang event itself, just so Doctor Strange could experience what the inside of the initial singularity of the Big Bang looks like before he continued his journey through the multiverse. The moment you need to focus on specifically is when this black vortex opens up, revealing a tunnel that Doctor Strange floats down before colliding with this big yellow initial singularity and finding a multitude of mini Big Bangs happening on the inside of that singularity, symbolizing every Big Bang that will happen in every universe. But anyways, this all being said, the reason why we're witnessing the rebirth of the MCU within the context of a TV show about a Norse god is because in Norse mythology, Loki is directly involved in Ragnarok and the subsequent end of all things, before the world is reborn and the gods are reincarnated. Like, I believe the MCU has adapted that Norse myth in their own science fiction-y way through the cosmically consequential actions of two Loki variants in season 1 and season 2 of this beautiful program. Because ever since the events of Thor Ragnarok happened and the gods of Asgard fell, this marked the beginning of the end for the MCU as we've known it, because that's what the Asgardians prophesied would happen following the triggering of Ragnarok. And like I've said in my last 2 Loki videos on the channel, I also highly expect the Sacred Timeline to be the MCU's adaptation of the Norse world serpent known as Jormungandr, an unbelievably giant snake that is so big that it is often depicted wrapped around all of Midgard while eating its own tail, a symbol that has shown up across multiple cultures called the Ouroboros. And because of the imagery of this snake destroying itself to renew itself, the Ouroboros has become a symbol of destruction and rebirth, which is super important considering what just happened in Loki episode 4. The Sacred Timeline is just one massive cosmic Ouroboros snake, with the Time Loom acting as the head of the MCU's multiversal serpent adaptation of the mythical Jormungandr, a cosmic serpent that also plays a significant role in the Norse Ragnarok story. The theme of Ouroboroses is a big one this season, especially after episode 4 teased an Ouroboros-like connection between Victor Timely and Ouroboros.
Your work is based on his work, and his work is based on your work.
Exactly which came first.
It's like a snake eating its own tail.
A connection that I believe we will see explained by the end of the season in a mind-blowing way. I truly believe that both Victor Timely and Ouroboros will end up becoming Mr. Griffin. Somehow, those two are connected. But anyways, because He Who Remains caused the Ouroboros that is the Sacred Timeline to explode and trigger a whole new Big Bang, the destruction of the old multiverse will now give way to the creation of a brand new multiverse, where all the the energy and matter from the center of that black hole at the end of time gets shot outwards and redistributed in a completely new way. But anyways, what could this all mean for Loki episode 5? Well, I think there are two possibilities here. The first of which being that everybody at the TVA except for Loki has been absorbed by the energies of the Big Bang and have been reincarnated into the new multiverse's next TVA. Possibly even the same early version of the TVA where nobody remembers Loki and there are statues of Kang littered everywhere. Loki might have actually visited this new TVA early on when he was time slipping. And because that TVA is a new multiverse entirely, no one knew who the heck Loki was. Now, the reason why I believe that Loki might have been the only person in the TVA to survive the blast from the Big Bang is because Loki technically still has the time stone that he pocketed in season 1, and the TVA removed the magic dampeners right before the very end. So I believe that there was a chance here that Loki used the time stone to skip the carnage at the end of time and skip to the beginning of the next multiverse. But that's just one possibility. But another big possibility that could have happened is that Loki could have transferred from the black hole from the Loki season 1 finale on the right to the black hole on the left. Because check this out, gang. I have a feeling that it might be revealed that He Who Remains could have been balancing the energies of not just one, but two black holes this entire time. The two black holes from the Loki finale. Like I've said in past videos, if you look at the windows of He Who Remains' office, you can see that his windows appear to be designed after the black hole that he lives inside, with 6 circles swirling around the center like the 6 infinity energies of the sacred timeline swirl around the TVA inside of a black hole. However, if you look closely at the entirety of his wall of windows, you can see that He Who Remains has 2 black hole styled windows that are connected together through subtle lines, almost like an infinity symbol or an hourglass. This could actually be the true significance of the hourglass symbolism of the TVA's logo, not just to represent the managing of time, but also to hint that He Who Remains was balancing the energies of 2 separate multiversal black holes at the same time, which is why we can see one multiverse beginning and one multiverse crumbling and ending at the start of the Loki season 1 finale. Because much like how an hourglass spreads sand across 2 halves, there is a chance that He Who Remains was distributing energy across 2 black holes, leading Loki to be cosmically torn between 2 black holes through his time slipping. But those are just 2 potential theories for how a Loki episode 5 could even happen. But the main point of this video is to tell you guys what we just witnessed at the end of Loki episode 4 was the end and the beginning of the MCU, in my opinion anyway. The very origin of the Embers of Genesis that was a focal point of the T'Challa Star-Lord episode of What If.
They're called the Embers of Genesis. Nutrient-rich cosmic dust from an ancient supernova with the power to terraform entire ecosystems.
Like the very same ancient supernova that the Embers of Genesis came from, likely just debuted at the end of this episode. But only time will tell. But anyways, thank you guys so much for watching this video. And hey, if you guys want to see more of me talking Marvel on the internet, be sure to follow the new podcast that me and my friends just made called the Guardians of the Galaxy podcast. We just goof around and have a lot of fun while talking about nerd shit. So if that interests you, subscribe right now. But anyways, you can follow me at Mastertainment on Twitter and Instagram or wherever I am if you guys want to see me post some weird shit. But most importantly, follow Heavy Spoilers here on YouTube because we got great stuff for you all the time. But yes, thank you guys so much for watching. I love you guys so much, and I'll see you guys later. Goodbye.